They called me useless in front of the entire company. Not in a performance review. Not behind closed doors. On a stage. With lights. A microphone. 800 people watching while the man in charge smiled like he was enjoying a private joke. My name is Natalie Brooks, and for 6 years, I was the invisible system that kept that company from burning itself to the ground. I was fired at exactly 9:01 a.m. during an all-hands meeting, right after the applause died down and before anyone had time to look away. The CEO didn't know it yet, but a few lines of code I'd written months earlier were already waiting. At 9:04, the company would begin telling the truth all by itself. My official title was Compliance Strategy Lead. That was the polite version. In reality, I was the last line between ambition and disaster. I designed the legal compliance architecture that every product relied on. I rebuilt our risk framework after the second federal inquiry. I wrote monitoring systems that caught violations before regulators ever noticed. When executives slept peacefully, it was because my systems were awake. None of that mattered the morning Ethan Cross decided to make me an example. The Millennium Conference Center's main auditorium was full. Every seat taken. Employees lining the walls. The quarterly all-hands meeting was Ethan's favorite ritual. He'd had a literal stage installed 6 months earlier, complete with theatrical lighting and a wireless mic that made him feel like a prophet instead of a CEO. He wore his usual uniform, dark jeans, black turtleneck, sneakers that cost more than my rent when I first joined the company. The kind of man who mistook volume for authority. I sat in the third row with my laptop balanced on my knees, still finishing a compliance review due before noon. Around me, people whispered about the record quarter, the new product launch, stock options finally vesting. The energy was electric. I should have noticed the warning signs. Ethan's assistant kept glancing in my direction. The legal team looked tense. I kept typing. At exactly 9 a.m., the lights dimmed. Ethan strode onto the stage, arms open, smile polished but hollow. "Good morning, innovators," he said. Applause thundered. He launched into the usual sermon. Disruption. Velocity. Fearless execution. Slides flashed behind him. Revenue up. Users doubled. Market share exploding. Every metric designed to intoxicate. Then the music changed. The upbeat track faded into something darker. Deliberate. But, Ethan said, letting the word linger, not everyone here believes in moving fast. My fingers froze. Some people, he continued, pacing like a prosecutor, think their job is to slow us down. To say no. To protect us from risk when risk is how progress happens. A spotlight swept the crowd and stopped on me. "Natalie Brooks," Ethan announced, smiling wider. "Would you join me on stage?" The room went quiet. 800 faces turned. I closed my laptop and stood. Every step toward the stage felt unreal, like walking into someone else's nightmare. Ethan handed me a microphone. I didn't take it. "Everyone," he said, turning back to the crowd, "this is the woman who's cost us 6 months of innovation. The high priestess of that's not compliant." Laughter rippled. Nervous. Curious. Hungry. "Tell them, Natalie," he said softly. "Tell them how many deals you killed. How many features you delayed. How much growth you strangled." I kept my voice calm. My job is to ensure our products meet federal requirements and protect user data. He laughed. Exactly. Regulations. Protection. Fear. More laughter. Louder this time. "Do you know what the board asked me yesterday?" Ethan stepped closer. I could smell his cologne, expensive and overpowering. They asked why our compliance costs tripled while our competitors launched twice as fast. Because our competitors are under investigation, I said. Quietly. The mic picked it up anyway. One was fined $40 million. Another had their IPO delayed indefinitely. We avoided that. Ethan's smile snapped. Because, he barked, you turned us into cowards. The screen behind us changed. My employee photo appeared, surrounded by red arrows pointing to delayed launches, revised features, partnerships flagged for review. Someone had prepared this. Carefully. This, Ethan said, pointing, is institutional paralysis. One person holding 800 innovators hostage. I could have explained how those delays prevented lawsuits. How those reviews uncovered fraud. How 2 partnerships were laundering money. But this wasn't a conversation. It was theater. Ethan leaned in, voice low. You walk around here like you're the only adult in the room. Then he straightened and said it clearly, loudly, deliberately. You are useless. The word landed like a physical blow. Silence swallowed the room. A relic, he continued. A fossil from when this company was small and scared. But we're not scared anymore. He turned back to the audience. Effective immediately, Natalie Brooks is no longer employed here. Security will escort her out. Applause started slowly. Then grew. I walked off the stage without looking at anyone. 800 people. Not one met my eyes. Security was already waiting in the hallway. Polite. Uncomfortable. They escorted me to my office to pack. 20 minutes to erase 6 years. As I placed my personal items into a box, I pulled out my phone. A message sat in my drafts, written 3 months earlier. Greg. Execute contingency plan. Authorization code, NB 771. The reply came before I reached the elevator. Understood. 9:04 a.m. tomorrow. I smiled. My first real smile in months. When I joined the company in 2018, there were 22 employees and a brilliant product that violated 17 federal regulations. The founders hired me out of desperation. Fix this, they said. Make it legal without killing it. So I didn't just fix it. I rebuilt everything. Every algorithm got a compliance layer. Every data flow a legal checkpoint. Every user action a privacy protocol. I wrote most of the core code myself because no one else understood both the law and the architecture. What Ethan never learned was this: I didn't just build the system. I owned it. During a restructuring 3 years earlier, the board decided to separate the compliance framework into its own entity for liability reasons. Standard corporate maneuvering. I created an LLC. The system was licensed back to the company for a symbolic $1 per year. Automatic renewal. No one questioned it. Why would they? I'd never given them a reason to doubt me. Except when accounting froze, legacy payments, earlier that year, the license wasn't renewed. For 74 days, they'd been using my system illegally. At $60,000 per day. And that system? It had a licensing verification routine. Dormant. Harmless. Honest. At 9:04 a.m. the next morning, while Ethan prepared to brag to the board about cutting compliance friction, every transaction in the company would begin displaying a simple message. Unlicensed use detected. I left the building carrying a cardboard box and something far heavier. They thought they erased me. They forgot who wrote the foundation. The first alert appeared exactly where I expected it to, subtle enough to be dismissed, honest enough to be undeniable. A small banner at the bottom of the dashboard Ethan was projecting during the executive briefing. Powered by Brooks Compliance Systems LLC. Unlicensed use detected. Please contact legal for licensing verification. He frowned, clicked once, and kept talking. The banner returned. Larger. Then another appeared on a different screen. Then another. Within 30 seconds, every live system in the room was quietly announcing what they had tried to erase. I wasn't there to watch it in person. I didn't need to be. I was at my kitchen table with coffee I hadn't touched, logged into 3 dashboards through forgotten integrations no one had bothered to shut down. Operations. Finance. Legal. One by one, the warnings multiplied. Not crashes. Not shutdowns. Just truth, calmly, relentlessly, embedded into every transaction, every process, every demo. Ethan's voice cracked when someone finally interrupted him. "What is that message?" He tried to laugh it off, called it a glitch, blamed a disgruntled former employee. My name floated through the room like a ghost. Then the board started checking their phones. Then legal went pale. Then the room turned loud in the way only panic can manage. At 9:06 a.m., the licensing audit notice hit their inboxes. 48 hours to produce full documentation of usage, valuation, and derivative works. 48 hours to explain why they've been using proprietary infrastructure without authorization. 48 hours to decide whether they wanted to lie again, or finally tell the truth. By 9:12, the meeting was over. Not adjourned. Abandoned. Executives left without speaking. Ethan stayed behind, staring at the screen as if confidence alone could overwrite ownership. It couldn't. It never could. Over the next 2 days, the company unraveled in quiet, documented ways. Investors pulled out. A government contract paused pending review. Journalists started calling. The legal department stopped sleeping. And every time someone tried to suppress the notifications, the system logged the attempt and displayed another warning. Unauthorized modification detected. Logged for audit compliance. The more they fought, the more evidence they created. When the audit materials finally arrived, they didn't deny anything. They couldn't. My framework processed nearly every transaction. Generated nearly all meaningful revenue. Prevented fines they never knew they'd escaped. Their own internal valuations put its worth in the hundreds of millions. And every single document traced back to code I'd written before I ever joined them. Before Ethan. Before his stage. Before his applause. The negotiation was brief because there was nothing left to argue. They admitted theft. They paid for unauthorized use. They signed a new licensing agreement at market rate. My name was restored across every system. My authorship acknowledged publicly. And yes, I took a board seat. Not for revenge. For oversight. Because no one who'd allowed that kind of arrogance should ever be trusted alone with something foundational again. Ethan resigned quietly the following week. No announcement. No farewell email. Just an empty office and a LinkedIn update about pursuing new opportunities. Marcus from legal didn't land as softly. Regulators are very interested in written advice that encourages theft. So are prosecutors. 3 months later, the system runs cleaner than it ever has. Younger engineers ask questions instead of deleting safeguards. Decisions take slightly longer and fail far less often. The company is smaller, steadier, and finally honest about what keeps it alive. Sometimes I think back to that stage. To the lights. To the word useless echoing through a room full of people who didn't understand what they were applauding. I don't feel angry anymore. I feel validated. Quietly. Permanently. Because competence doesn't need permission, and architecture always outlasts arrogance. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. If you build something essential, document it. Protect it. Know its value even when others don't. Especially when others don't. Because one day, the truth will surface. And when it does, it won't shout. It will simply work. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and whether you've ever been underestimated at work. If you enjoyed this narrative, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories like this one. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Until next time, keep building, keep documenting, and never let anyone decide your worth for you.